On the left side of the bell curve, the line went down, okay? And so with this particular research, we have where students started out about the same, and if they were with the highly effective teachers, they stayed about the same, a little bit of a positive trajectory in terms of their learning. With ineffective teachers, look at the dramatic drop in terms of reading. Okay? And so we see that the teacher plays a difference in how a student will perform. There is a spillover effect in terms of student achievement as far as what will happen. That student achievement rises across a grade when a high quality teacher comes on board. That means if you have a third grade team where things aren't going quite as well, and you get a highly effective teacher on that third grade team, the tide is going to rise for all ships. There's a spillover effect of effective teaching that we have when we bring those effective teachers on board. Okay? So 1/10 to 1/5 of the impact of replacing the student's own teacher, and that can come from a spillover effect. All right? Now, so what is the influence of ineffective teachers? And let's talk about that for just a moment. This was an analysis of the time that it would take an effective versus a less effective teacher to teach information, right? To just go out and teach information. The 75th percentile teacher, and that's a teacher who might be in that right quadrant of the bell curve, what it takes them to teach in 3/4 of the year, it takes a less effective teacher to teach over the whole year. So they can teach the same content and skills in 3/4 of the time. How does that happen? Why is it that time is lost in the 25th percentile? Why is it that time is lost? What happens?
No management, no discipline.
No management. There's discipline, organization, all of those things. I haven't planned well, right? I might not even align what I'm teaching in the classroom to what students are expected to know and be able to do. That's the basic point right there. I got to make sure I'm teaching them what they need to know, right? And then you have another teacher, you sit there, and you know the morning routine. Everybody knows the morning routine in an elementary school, right? And what do you do in the morning routine?
Calendar.
You do calendar, all that. You might do lunch, the lunch count. I'm sitting in a teacher's classroom, and it takes about 30 minutes to get through the lunch count. Okay? And this is what the teacher does. All right? So the teacher goes through what's on the lunch menu, and she says, okay, kids, you have 4 choices for lunch today. And she proceeds to go into detail regarding each choice for lunch. So we are going to have a tuna on a roll. And there are some side peaches that go with the tuna. And that is a choice. Everyone who would like the tuna on the roll with the peaches, would you please stand up? And everybody would stand up. And then she'd say, Celeste, would you count how many are standing up? And Celeste would stand up and count how many were standing up. And then all those children would sit down. Now, another choice is pizza. And it's the triangular kind and not the rectangular kind this week. And that comes with a side of, broccoli or whatever it might be. All the children who would like the triangle pizza, would you please stand up, right? And Bonnie, would you stand up and count everyone who would like? Now imagine that. Every single day, 30 minutes of instructional time taken to do the lunch count, right? I've been in other teachers' classrooms where the kids come in, they automatically unpack their book bags. She's got a magnet chart where they move their magnet to the choice of lunch that they want. They sit down and get started on the sponge activity of the day that's ready for them, and they're ready to go. Instructional time maximized, right? So those are many of the reasons as to why it would take an effective teacher less time to teach the same amount of material. Okay, that's one of the reasons why. If we have a low, and then a high teacher in terms of effectiveness, a high, and a high teacher, we get a difference of 13 percentile points of increase. So it takes a while for an effective teacher to remediate the effects of an ineffective teacher. It takes a while for that to happen, folks. Okay? Now, this was a point that was made earlier about the explained variance on student achievement. And one thing we cannot go in front of a group and say is that the home socioeconomic status does not impact student achievement, because it does. Okay? We cannot go in and say that. But what we can say is that the greatest in-school factor affecting student achievement is the teacher. Okay? So let's look at this, and it keeps going. Let's look at this pie chart here. And this was some work done in terms of the explained variance of student achievement. 50% of the explained variance on student achievement comes from the student, him or herself. Now, what does that mean? It's their prior achievement, what they know already, okay, that kind of thing. That explains, that's 50% is explained. Peers, 5 to 10%. Do peers impact student achievement? Lord, yes, I have got a 13-year-old. Please help me, right? You know, I was a middle school teacher, and this was before I had kids or a child, and I gave really great advice to parents. They would come in and they would say, what has happened to my child? What did you do to him or her? He or she was so nice before they came into middle school, right? And I would give them really great advice. I'd say, oh, just hang on. You know, it'll be okay. And sit down and reason with him or her. Share with him, Denise, why is it that you have this rule in your household? Share with her, why is it that they need to have study time at the table? Well, that was really great advice until I had a 13-year-old, right? And so I'm hearing things coming out of my mouth like, because when you're 18, no, just kidding. Things like, you know, because this is the way it is, we love you, and, you know, this is the way it's going to be, right? So I'm not taking that advice too well. Now that I'm the parent on the other side of the table, I'm not taking my own advice. But peers do make a difference, okay? We also have the school explains the variance in student achievement, which is interesting. A lot of times we think that the school explains a greater piece of the pie. Am I right? Yeah. I mean, you know, you hear, you know, why do people move into different districts and whatnot? It's because of the school. Why they buy a house in different areas? Because of the school. All right? And then we have the home. Okay? The home explaining 5 to 10% of the variance in student achievement. But looky here. 30% of the variance in student achievement is explained by the teacher. And you know what, folks? That should empower us that we can make a difference. Yes, sir.
So when I see school 5 to 10%,
yeah,
I'm thinking, okay, well, what fills a school? It's the peers and it's the teachers. So then what factors are we talking about when we look at school?
Right. So what particular school that the child happens to attend, okay? So they may not have gone in and looked at what are those factors related to the school. There are other studies that do that, right? Where they look at what is it about this school that as a whole, they're getting great gains in student achievement, right? What is it about this school as a whole in which kids are not learning as much? What this looked at is if you take student achievement and link it back to the school, what percent is the explained variance? Other studies look at what is it about the school that makes it so that students are achieving more. In fact, there are studies that go in and look at schools where the students should not actually be performing where they are, right? Because of all of the factors that impact student achievement. And they go and look at what's happening there. And do you know what's happening there?
High expectation, great teaching, great show.
Okay. Well, some of the specific items that have come out of studies have been, one, great leadership at the school. Great leadership at the school. Okay. School climate. Okay, and that kind of impacts a little bit with school leadership, right? We got some confounding things here that are working together.